All right, guys. So first, kind of key topics that we're going to discuss. What makes your resume important? So I'm essentially going to sell you on the idea, if you don't already think it's important or you don't think it's a key component to job searching, I'm going to try to convince you otherwise and tell you why you need to invest time into tailoring your resume to each job that you make. So there's an old statement that, I want my resume, my general resume completed, or, I want to work on my general resume. I don't really like to look at it that way, and many hiring managers and recruiters wouldn't like to see it that way either. Your resume should be tailored to essentially any job or application that you make, and I'm going to basically be going through the tools in which you can then identify how you should tailor it along the way. So structuring your resume, I'm going to go through each of the sections, what you should have in them, the layout or format of the resume, and the common mistakes made, and then also thinking like a recruiter. And I think this one is often kind of missed, certainly for people who are not well versed in resume writing, is you kind of have to think about the things that a recruiter is looking to see from a prospective candidate, whether it's an internship you're applying for, or a full-time job once you leave college, or a graduate application you're looking for. There's nuances in which you need to pay attention to, and it will allow you to kind of grasp their kind of attention quicker in the resume. So I have still people joining in here. And also applicant tracking systems. So something that might not seem very familiar with you guys at the moment. After this workshop, I hope that you guys are a little bit more familiar with what they are and what they do, and then how we can help you. So more on what, I guess, if we come away from this webinar today, how you could interact with us in the future, and how I could assist you. Okay, so what makes a resume important? So resume, if you think about it in a virtual world, which is very much one we're living in right now, we're not going to meet our employer face to face in our initial interaction. So what we do in our resume is essentially going to determine our first impression with an employer or recruiter, so on. So if it's done poorly or done in a half-hearted manner, you're certainly going to give off the impression that that's the sort of individual you are, or how conscientious or how deliberate you are in your approach will advocate for the possibility that you're the same way once you get into the workplace. So it's very important that we are deliberate in our approach, or if we do pride ourselves in certain qualities, that we are representing them in how we piece together our resume. Now, that's not to say it has to get very complex, but as I said, the effort that you put in here will advocate for your first impression that's being made to an employer. So it is important to consider that. So yeah, I mean, if you would not probably describe yourself as very uninteresting or incapable of doing certain tasks. So don't make it seem that way when you approach your resume. It's very important to, as I said, be deliberate and ensure that you're highlighting yourself to the best of your ability. Outlines your experience and skill set. So again, if you bring a lot to the table, and I've met many people, that have come into me with one-on-one appointments, and they can be the most energetic, creative and talented characters in many ways, but the sheet of paper does not say so. And it's very hard to do. We all have a problem about writing about ourselves, or at least most of us do. I personally love to talk, but writing about myself is something that didn't come naturally to me at all. And so, unfortunately, when we're competing for internships and full-time jobs when we leave college, guys, you're going to have to get comfortable writing about yourself. And fortunately, you can have other people help you along with this, friends, family members, and professionals who know how to write in a concise way that appeals to, job searchers and so on. So it's something that many people aren't comfortable with, as I said, but it's an idea that you got to buy into. It is a competition, it is a marketing competition between you and another person. So again, a resume is a sheet of paper, but it's one in which needs to sell you in a holistic sense, and one in which you feel is accurate to your personal skill set. So structuring your resume. I'm going to go through the structure a little bit. I'm I'm not going to spend too long on it because honestly, I'm going to give you some samples at the end in which you can take and tailor to your own needs. What I'm more going to concentrate is on the content and how to, as I said, tailor these resumes to the needs of an employer. And font size is something that is important, but in the header, 28 to 32, just ensuring that your name is the biggest kind of title on the whole document is something that is pretty standard, but not too complex. So your address, another thing that people currently or repeatedly do is that they detail their whole address on the resume. You don't actually need to. You only need to list the zip code and the general city or area you live in. So if you have done that, it's not that you need to remove it, but as I said, if you don't want to put a detailed address, you don't have to. LinkedIn URL and email address, critical. A LinkedIn profile, that's for another webinar that I will do later on the semester, but certainly if you've got one that's up to date and you're constantly working on, I would encourage those to go there. Email address, if you're a graduating senior, just put your Gmail. If you're applying for an internship, you're going to be here another year or so. That's okay to add your Warhawks email, but I would personally recommend that you just have a personal, professional email that is for the likes of job applications, and it's something simple and straightforward, and not any jargony terms in the email itself. Second, professional summary. This is a big component of the resume, and I'm going to beat the drum on this hard in this webinar. The professional summary is going to set up the document. So it's important to begin by stating what you are professionally. If you're a student who is doing a bachelor's degree, major, minor, and your classification, and so on. And then you'll go into who you are, and that's more of a personality kind of skill set type structure. So professional summary is going to be 4 to 5 sentences long. As I said, starting off with senior marketing major concentrating in X, a effective communicator who exemplifies good leadership skills. Notice it's in third person, it's incomplete sentences. And although you're probably thinking, where the hell did you just pull that out of? Important bit is, looking at each job, you're going to see skills that are required in the job description. So where the posting is, scroll down to roles and responsibilities, required skills, or however they've labeled it. You're going to want to integrate those skills somewhere in the resume, either in the summary section or the work experience section. So identifying which of those skills in the job description that you fulfill and how is to go into your who section of your summary. And by the way, it doesn't actually say who in the summary, but as I said, it runs in a format like beginning by saying, the what follows senior marketing major at ULM with a minor in X. That's your what, and your who is personality, characteristics, skill sets, and so on. And that is just paying attention to the job description and integrating those. Skills, hard skills, soft skills, what is the difference? Hard skills is more technology-based, computer science majors in their computer languages, or softwares that you use if you're a communications major and you're very proficient at, say, Adobe Photoshop. That's a hard skill. That is a trained kind of technological application that is necessary for probably the career you want to follow. And so it's very necessary that that is in the skills section, which goes under the professional summary. Soft skills. These are skills that you won't mention in the summary, but you feel like you have them and they're advantageous or they're important for the employer to know. So time management. If you're a NCAA athlete and you have a 3.5 GPA and you're involved on campus, you've pretty good time management skills because you've managed to do multiple things well during a regular college week and perform at a high level. So that's one example of good time management. Also, interpersonal skills, critical thinking. These are continuous keywords that come up in job descriptions and later in the resume or later in the webinar, I will discuss how much they matter, those keywords. Education, this is a pretty straightforward section. It's just a matter of stating your major, your minor, university, GPA if it's over 3.0. And then for students, I often recommend them to, underneath the education section, but as part of it, list the key courses that you take. People say, I don't have relevant experience to enter the workforce in computer science. So how do I convince someone that I'm ready to do the job? Well, one in which way is you could actually list the key courses that you've taken that focus on those specific hard skills that they're looking for. So that's one way in which you can bridge the gap there. And I think it's a pretty effective way of, as I said, when you're a student and not much professional experience, you can kind of show that you recognize the demands of the job, so to speak, and that you've learned or you have knowledge of those things. And ultimately, we all have to start off in being trained at some point in our careers. So, you know, a hiring manager also has to take a chance on someone who doesn't have much experience. Okay, so next section. Okay, work experience, very important. So as I said, along with the summary, work experience, these need to be congruent with each other. So meaning whatever you say in the summary, you'll want to show proof of those skills being implemented in the work experience. So job description that you're looking at, you're using that as a checklist to integrate those keywords and skills into the work experience. So this most simple example I can think of, if this role you're looking for needs excellent communication skills and you've had customer service experience, it doesn't matter if it's a restaurant, retail, what have you, you have interacted with people, you have had to exemplify effective customer service skills. How are you doing that? Is it in your approach, your friendly demeanor? Is it your comprehensive responses on product knowledge? So you've got to use the bullet points. Use the bullet points, and I haven't even explained. Work experience section, you'll title the job, and then you'll put bullet points to describe what you do in each of those jobs that you've performed. Now, when going over it, you'll want to do the most recent first. So as we know, a resume usually follows in a chronological order, most recent. I like to go most recent and most relevant. So it's very important to obviously state the job you have now, but early in the resume, the employer will want to see the experience that you have that applies and transfers best to the work that you're applying for. Hope that makes sense. So yes, you're gonna, in the bullet points, if you have statistics, proof of achievement that you've executed or completed work to a good standard, the bullet points that you use here cannot be passive. They cannot be 2 to 3 words. It's got to be active. It's got to be achievement oriented if you can. You're trying to transfer those skills that you mentioned that you have in the summary section down here so that the employer can see from the job description and looking at your resume, this person has what we need. Okay, so RSO, volunteer experience, I get this a lot. Does on-campus experience matter? Yes, it does. If you're actively involved on campus in societies or organizations, this speaks again, and it is an opportunity for you to advocate for the skills that they're looking for, same way the work experience does. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's paid or not. Obviously, if we're looking at an internship versus a part-time job versus on-campus experience, all rank different in terms of how strong they work for you, but ultimately the goal is the same. You're trying to show how this transfers into their work. So if you're a student athlete, you'll also have a section for a student athlete experience, and then references. So that's just a brief overview of the structure, and you're probably thinking, what is he after talking about for the last 10 minutes? I will hit home on all of this, and I will ensure you're prepared afterwards to take what I've said into an actual live resume. Someone is in the chat box here. Oh yes, thank you, Maggie, for reminding them. Please send in your CWIT into the chat box if you haven't done already. As I said, keeps a record for us when we go to enter the details. Okay, so we're good on time, 3:20. So yes, please put in your CWID now into the chat box in Zoom, please, for our records. Thank you very much. Appreciate your patience, guys. As I said, we will do a open Q&A for the last 10, 20 minutes, whatever you guys have. And if we don't get anything done, or if I haven't answered your question to the extent that you want, personal appointments are always a good option too, so we can do that. Okay, structuring. Common mistakes made. Right, so I talked about this already at the beginning. For those who didn't hear me, generic resumes. I like to say there's no such thing, or at least you should have one, obviously, for your records, and it might have all of your work experience on one resume, and you might be able to put one in or out depending on what job you're applying for, depending on how relevant it is. But yes, it never should be with the aim to send out mass emails. It's not a good look, guys. As I said, it needs to be deliberate, it needs to be tailored, and you should look at each job application independently and basically change the language. And that's not to say you'll need to change it a whole lot every time. I'm not saying that, but you shouldn't have the approach to distribute. As I said, because your keywords and various different things, the job description, each post that's put up is going to appear differently, and you should know that. There will be similarities, but especially if it's in the same industry. For example, if it's a computer science major applying for an entry-level position in software, they're probably going to need to know, Java. They're probably going to need to know Python and things like that. So of course, you're not going to change that. And if you have one experience ever in a computer science related kind of field, then you're not going to take that out either, because it's your one and only relevant experience. But just as I said, approach it with an open mind, ensure that you're looking at it from a specific standpoint that you want to apply for this job. So yeah, take time to proofread it. Employers do not like when you make like a lot of punctuation mistakes and spelling mistakes and so on. I have recruiters added in on LinkedIn, and they like to complain about someone who, missed a period mark or here or there. If you have periods in, have them in everywhere. If you don't, just leave them, especially when I'm talking about the bullet point section or the bullet points as part of your work experience. Yeah, a lot of this is reflection as well, ensuring that you're articulating yourself to your fullest extent. Formatting is to do with the margins, and yeah, ensuring, I think this is a big thing to consider, is whatever you want the recruiter to see in terms of what you feel is your biggest asset, i.e. when it comes to the work experience and what you put first, or if you're a student doing practicums, like doing rotations, I would put your rotations experience before your work experience, because that's your specific clinical or practical experience. So you would want them to see that first, and so that should be your biggest selling point, essentially. Your font size within the body of text should be consistent throughout. I talk about going to the ATS system, which I'm going to discuss in a minute. So more on the formatting. I talk about, yeah, you can avoid a lot of these format errors using ATS. Okay. So I keep talking about skills, and you're thinking, what does it matter? Well, this is some pretty, dense research from the National Association of College and Employers. They liaise with employers, and they carry out research on what they want from students, prospective employees, so that they know what's going to be priority when they come into the workforce. So out of, I think there was over 100 employers participating in this research, attributes that employers seek on a candidate's resume: communication skills. It's going to be a pretty common one, guys. So it's industry specific too. You can imagine that a public relations role is going to take a lot more communication skills than, say, a computer science role. Two different things in nature, of course. And for that reason, you know, you're going to prioritize different skills depending on the industry. But this is a generic overview of obviously what comes up most often and what they feel is valuable. But that said, communication skills, you know, extend to not purely within a customer standpoint, but with your other colleagues and your managers alike. So if you don't have good written communication skills, oral communication skills, you're going to suffer. Problem solving skills, like your ability to kind of analyze and step back and strip information down to solve a complex problem. This is the responding versus reacting type scenario where you allow your emotions to cool, or you allow to explore different sources of opinions and so on to give a holistic basis to solve a problem, rather than jumping straight in with your opinion in that time and space. So initiative, analytical, quantitative skills, again, industry specific. Some will really heavily rely on quantitative skills, some won't. Strong work ethic. This is a bit of a pet peeve of mine. Two words that come up often on a resume: passionate, strong work ethic. Guys, everyone says that. So use more intricate words that highlight why you have a strong work ethic. I like initiative more. Initiative is kind of linked to work ethic because it means you're a self-starter. You're someone who doesn't need to be told what to do, but rather just identifies tasks and that's relevant to your work and completes them without being told. It doesn't have to be micromanaged and so on. So I'm getting more chance here. Is this OPC widths? Yes. Thank you, Emily, for that. Okay, so detail-oriented technical skills, computer skills, interpersonal skills, organization ability, strategic planning, tactfulness, creativity. It really does show that from the top to bottom seem more generic, and there are ones in which do come up more often, I will admit that. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, applicant tracking systems. So what is this? So you probably all think that your resumes are being read by a person. Well, in big companies, especially when you're applying for your internships or your, you know, post kind of collegiate full-time jobs, if there's mass applicants, or this is a popular place to work, or just a role in which you feel is going to get a lot of traction, don't underestimate if it's being read by a computer, which is an applicant tracking system. So they have an application on their computer that sorts, scans, and ranks your resume based on a few things. So this is why, another reason why a resume done deliberately is going to set you apart from your candidates, because a lot of people don't even know what an applicant tracking system is, never mind the fact that it's being more frequently used now more than ever. Because you probably think to yourself, how would someone sit down and read 100 resumes in a session or in a single day? They don't. They've submitted into a computer, and this applicant tracking system scans your resume to see how it fits the job description to ultimately deem whether you're the best candidate for the job. Now, is that right? Does that mean that the best selection is always being made? Absolutely not. But those who become aware of the tricks and the commonalities that an applicant tracking system looks for, you'll be more likely to not be that person. So yeah, I've already read through this without even knowing it. Well, common errors. Okay, so what does an applicant tracking system pick up on or not recognize? Or how do you go from the bottom of the pile and how do you get to the top of the pile? Okay, well, here's some things that ATS doesn't recognize. They don't recognize PDF versions of your resume. So if you've been submitting PDF versions to big companies who would likely use an applicant tracking system, for example, I know for a fact, not CenturyLink, but IBM, they use an ATS. So I've had a lot of computer science majors struggle with that. So no PDF, preferably not. This is the thing, not every applicant tracking system is the same, but these are the common things that I've seen reported by applicants and employers alike. PDFs, columns and tables used in your resume. So sometimes with those one-page resumes, you'll have all these sections like crossing over each other. I like a one-page, and we'll go into that in a second, but those kind of templates don't always mix well with an ATS, aren't guaranteed to save you. The space that you're trying to save may not save you at all. Font size, below 11. Oh yeah, so it doesn't detect font size below 11. So for those of you who love to get it on one page, again, reducing your font size to 8, not only for visibility if someone was reading it, it's hard to read if it's under 11, but the applicant tracking system also doesn't recognize it. So what does this say? It means probably keep your resume simple and straightforward to avoid, you know, little hiccups that might happen with errors on the applicant tracking system. Now, I've told you some of the things that they don't recognize, but here's what they do look for, and how do you get ranked high? So I talked about the job description being, you know, selecting skills and so on. These are keywords. Keywords meaning things that popped up in the job description. Now, you don't want to copy and paste, and you don't want your resume to fit the job description, but you want the job description to fit your resume. Meaning you're going to go about talking about your jobs, your experience, your personality qualities, but you do want the keywords to appear in there so you rank higher. So the more these keywords match up, the better chance you've got of ranking higher. So essentially what the ATS might do is they might run through multiple different sections. So they might go from 100 to 50, and then 50 to 20. And then the last 20 might be read out by the employer. You cannot lie about the things you put in there. As I said, that's why it has to be summary, states the skill, or might describe it a little bit on who you are, but the work experience must be the proof. If you lie, eventually it will come to fruition or come back to bite you in an interview or beforehand if they ask you, and if they just believe by reading it that it's not you know, true. So, or they ring up one of your references and you know, there's obviously embellishment there. The ATS may not be able to detect it, but ultimately an employer will. So it's better not to lie in it or embellish. Where are we at now? Okay, so we're good on time. All right. So how long should my resume be? Biggest question I get asked all the time. For a college student, preferably, it should be one page. It should be one page, taking into account the various different things I said. So if you've got multiple different part-time jobs over the last few years, if you've got internship or specific experience, but you also have other jobs that you want to include, my rule of thumb is include what's most recent and what's most relevant. And then after that, if you want to include the other jobs you do, list them, because each job you're going to use 3 to 5 bullet points to describe what you did. So each one you cannot do that with and then expect to be under a page. And that might be just one job. So you might just have one job that has 5 bullet points, and that's your work experience section. And if that satisfies or is linked to the job description, i.e. you're touching on the points that they want to see, then that's fine. Perfect. It should be one page unless you have more relevant experience to add that your others haven't fully touched on, and you want to give a more comprehensive, holistic viewpoint. Obviously, as you accumulate more work experience as a professional, you tend to drip into the 2 pages and so on, and that's fine. But as a college student, unless you've had a wealth of experience already in your industry that you're looking to transfer over to, there's no point telling them about the job you had at Walmart in the beginning of your college career as a freshman. Not to say, and now I say that, and I don't mean that you cannot include a customer service role no matter where it was. And I have a short story, but basically a person came into me before, and she was a kinesiology major looking to apply for PT school, and had her internships at PT school. Not PT school, but as her part of her kinesiology major. She had her rotations, and she said, I asked her, have you worked any other jobs? She said, no, I haven't. I've only worked at Chuck E. Cheese, but that's not really relevant. And I said, oh, okay. And she was like, I was a manager there, and I got promoted, and I was looking after 5 staff members at a time. I was like, okay, well, that adds another layer to like your leadership skills, your teamwork skills, your communication skills. And ultimately, when you're applying for PT school, it's like we all had rotations, if that makes sense, or most people did, coming into their final year. So it's like, what could you do to set yourself apart? And I think that shows her ability to take on a lot of responsibility. And so I think it works in her favor, if that makes sense. But it was particularly interesting because she was under the impression that it was worth nothing. But as I said, as a manager, being promoted and having that responsibility of, you know, liaising and distributing tasks and managing different employees at a time, that is useful. It is very useful. So that kind of covers my second question: what jobs should I include? And I did already cover, does my on-campus involvement matter? As I said, particularly if it's active and has a transferable skills. So I think, yeah, okay. So I'll go over a little bit about what we do in the Career Center, how I can help, and then I'll just open it up for you guys to ask questions. So resume one-to-one appointments, we typically did them face-to-face up until this semester. Obviously, coronavirus and everything like that, we're trying to cut down on the traffic within the office. So I do Zoom meetings all the time now with students, or a phone call, less preferable, or email back and forth. People send me their resumes, tell me what it's for, what they're looking to do with it, getting my opinion on it, and I can schedule them in that way. That's fine if you just want to bounce questions back and forth. Even people that I'm connected with on LinkedIn, they like to message me just about like, I'm applying for this job. Do you think, what do I need to prep for my interview? So we do mock interviews as well, which again will be done over Zoom now. I've started helping students with LinkedIn and Handshake accounts now. So one of our webinar series this semester will be covering that exactly. But I believe as the virtual emphasis continues, as the coronavirus persists, the reliance on the likes of LinkedIn is going to set you apart a little bit more than honestly the average candidate. So as I said, investing time in it, similar to your resume, I think is something that's just going to cover all the bases and leave less stones unturned, if that makes sense. So we also do classroom presentations from time to time. We did a lot last semester, but looks like we'll be doing a few less this semester just because of how everyone's professor's curriculum has been thrown off with the coronavirus and just having to adapt to a hybrid model and so on. It was much easier for professors to schedule us in when they knew what their weeks were going to look like and when they'd be available and stuff. What else am I missing here? Job search. So people just, you know, I don't particularly get people internships or anything like that, but I do assist them with kind of, for those who are a little less sure of themselves and don't know what to do with their major and things like that. That's a very like, you know, freshman, sophomore type service that we do, but we do like help them look what they can do with their majors and job titles that kind of transfer over, and gives them more ideas for what they could potentially be doing and how they could be working on that as they go through college. So Yeah, I'm going to open the questions up now. So guys, if you have questions, start putting them in the chat. If not, then we'll be in this sooner than you expect. But please take the time to do that now if you want. So if you've got any specific questions on resumes, yours in particular, relevant to your major, or anything I said, please take the time to ask. Or alternatively set up an appointment with me if you think it's going to take too long. No questions at all. Geez, I must have done a terrible job. I'll give you a few more minutes. If anyone hasn't put in their CWIT into the chat box, please do now. As I said, for our records, it's very important. Also, now that I think about it, I also must attach some resources for you guys. So something I didn't mention, as I still have your attention, hopefully. We've got a lot of templates on our website here that can basically serve as a starter kit for a lot of your resumes. So if you don't love formatting your own so much and you just want a point to start with, by all means use our use this link attached here. I don't know if that was direct. No, everyone needed. So this is a link to our templates that are on our website. And then if you wanted a checklist to kind of go through your resume, that like just ensuring that it's perfectly up to scratch and you're not making any of those common mistakes that I kind of talked about. This article by the Muse 43 Resume Tips is actually very good. And you'll see a lot of what I already said is kind of in there, to be honest. So those are two really useful things. And we have on our website, in that link I just put in, you can also, there's different templates for depending on what meets your kind of situation. If you're a student athlete, for example, we have one for that. If you're a computer science major, if you're doing practicums, you're kind of on the medical side of things and you're going to be doing rotations. I've kind of tailored a resume template to have a section for you to talk about that more. And if there's not a template there that particularly you'd like to see, I put a CV there, that's for people making PhD applications or in kind of more in the, as I said, the medical field, and you have a lot of experience in that kind of area. The CV is more extensive, gives you ability to list more jobs. It doesn't have a requirement limit on the page numbers, things like that. So really, we're looking to add all the time to what we're offering to the students. So if you have anything that you want to see on the website that would help you more, let me know. My email address, you probably know it if you've seen my email that I sent out to all the students yesterday, is burke@ulm.edu, BOURKE. If you have any questions, want to set up an appointment, and so on, if there's any way I can help, please reach out. I'm just happy to assist people as you approach your own career journeys. That is my role, to kind of be a person who could essentially coach you along the way. And so very happy to do so. I've helped people get internships, jobs, into grad school a lot over the last year, and it's the most fulfilling feeling in the world when you get told that you've helped in even the smallest way, because we all know the students do the work. But if I made any contribution, it obviously feels great, and I love taking time out to do the appointments. It's something that I definitely miss now that we're going all virtual. But any questions, guys? I'll give you a few more minutes to ask those. But if you haven't put your CWIT in, please do. And if not, you have the freedom to leave. right, guys, if you've no questions, we'll leave it at that. And yeah, thanks very much for showing up, and hopefully see you at some of the next few webinars as they present. Next week, we have interview skills coming up. So if you're not confident about your ability to interview, I'll be going over a lot of the virtual and face-to-face methods and nuances to look out for as you make your applications from this point onwards. So would certainly be useful and educational for you guys if you want to show up and participate in that. We'd be more than happy to do so. And we'll have one on LinkedIn in a couple of weeks and things like that. So yeah, feel free to stop by, guys. And if that's everything, I'm going to end the meeting now.